Hey guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my first recent reads of 2023, even though most of these books I read in 2022 in December, but whatever, it doesn't matter because yeah, I just have a whole bunch of books to talk about, so because it got away from me again, because that happens. Anyways, I have, let's see, how many do I have? I've like 11-ish books to talk about, so let's just get right into that. The first book I want to talk about, most of these, I'm actually just splitting these up into ratings. So the first rating I'll be talking about is 4 to 4.5 stars, and the second one is 5. I didn't actually have any lower than that for the last week or two, or however long it took me to read all these, and that's great. Yeah, I actually didn't read that many bad books in 2022, which is great, but I've also gotten better at DNFing, so that's probably why. Anyways, so yeah, I have that, and I will also have my reviews to all of these books once I post them, because I know a couple of them I don't have the review yet, but I will. When I do have the reviews of these books, I will link them in the description below of my reviews under their titles and the authors. That way you can see my thoughts on them, content stuff that I listed that you might have issues with, so on and so forth. So, with that said, I'm going to also more details, because sometimes I don't get very detailed with these books, because it's like, by the time I get to it, it's like, I don't know what to say. And a lot of these books I read a while ago, so I may not remember all my thoughts on them, but the reviews are more up to date. So, there's that. There's your kind of disclaimer thing. I guess that's what you'd call this. I don't know, just information. Anyways, so we're just going to get into the first book that I have on my list here, and that is Through a Shattered Glass by Sarah Pennington. This is a Snow Queen, Alice in Wonderland mashup fairy tale retelling. And in this, we follow a girl. She used to like visit Wonderland a lot, but then something happened. At the very beginning of the book, we're not quite sure what happened. We just know that she has a cracked mirror. Alice, I think her name is. I'm not sure if that's how you say her name, or it's like Alice but spelled differently. I'm not really sure, so I'm not really gonna go into that. But anyway, something happened in Wonderland a long time ago, and through the events, she managed to escape, but she lost her best friend, Kai Hatter, to whatever happened. She thinks he's dead. But then things start showing up, like she sees the white rabbit again, some other things start showing up. There's like images in her mirror, like hinting that Wonderland's still alive. She thinks it died, and then so she decides to go back, and she finds out things are way different than she thought, and Kai is actually still alive, but different than she thought everything would be. Wonderland is totally different than how she left it, and so starts her adventure. This is a novella. I got this from the author for an honest opinion of a review, and I really enjoyed it. This is the first Sarah Pennington book I've read, and I really want to try other of her books. I own a couple of her ebooks. I just haven't read them yet, obviously. But yeah, this was very interesting. I never would have thought of combining these two fairy tales together. But now that she has done this in this book, I really can't imagine them separate now. They work very well together, very well meshed, because it's like both the Snow Queen and Alice in Wonderland have kind of this whimsy in the original tales a little bit, but they also have a really dark side, and that was very much pointed out in this. It's like, here's like the whimsy and stuff that we see through our main character's past and stuff, but now we have more of a dark, twisted side. So it's not that dark that a lot of people would find it creepy, though the creep factor is there on a couple of the scenes, and it's like, yeah, I really felt it when she did put it in. But yeah, I just really thought it was entertaining, really enjoyable. I loved how she combined the two. Our main character wasn't my favorite, but I did understand why she was acting very cynical and kind of, not really down in the dumps, but very grumpy. I do understand why she was acting that way, because of things that happened and stuff and how it affected her, so that made sense. She wasn't probably what I would call my favorite character, but she did have enough to her that I grew to like her and understand her. I also liked Kai. We didn't see a lot of him. Seeing as this is a novel, this is only told from our main girl's perspective. But I did like him. The only problem I had was the romance I felt wasn't developed enough. Mainly it's a novella, so it's understandable. It's just, and like I understood how they got there because, you know, of circumstances and stuff and seeing the flashbacks. I just wanted to see more of our main girl character and Kai's connection. I just really wanted to see more of the friendship connection, but I do understand with the story that she got there that Kai was a completely different person by that time, and so it was a little, it would have been very hard to do. But that was just my only caveat. I just thought that was a little bit on the short side. It still works out fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I felt it. I would want it a little more deeper, but it would have had to have been a longer book for that. But for a novella, it was very good, and I would recommend it. I gave it a 4.5 stars. Okay, let's see if I can find the picture of the next one. Here it is. So the next book I read was the ending of, well, at least the current ending of the Elves of Lessa series by kmshia, and that is The Prince's Bargain. This is a fantasy romance series. It's like connected standalones. Like all the books are connected. They're about different couples in each one, but who appear in all the other books, but you do not have to read them in order. I read them in order and would recommend that, just because a couple of the very first two couples, obviously from books 1 and 2, you would get spoiled for if you read book 3 first, but you don't need to read them in order. I just did, and I found I liked it that way, but you could totally read them out of order. And in The Prince's Bargain, we follow Crown Prince Arvel of the human kingdom of Kalnor. He is in need of a new translator because in this world, the Elves of Lessa and the humans of Kalnor, they have a huge language barrier. So they need like translators to help translate for them and stuff. Even though they're good friends and allies, they just have a really giant language barrier that just keeps them from communicating directly. So he needs translators for like a translator for like different events and stuff because there just aren't that many around. So he kind of recruits a trade translator. She's supposed to be doing trade, but now she's doing social stuff with him, named Myth. And she is an elf, and she does not really want to do social translating, but she's willing to do it to help him out. And then this whole thing starts up with Arvel's like extended family. There's like this whole corruption of them in the, it's not really the economic statement, it's like in trade and stuff. They're like cheating the trade system, and so they set out to stop them, and in the process things don't really go as smoothly as I hope. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave this one a 4.5 stars as well. This is my second favorite book in the series. My first one is the very first book, Red Rope of Fate. I really, really like this. Both Arvel and Myth love the library and they love books, and it's just, you know, how could you not fall in love with two characters who love books? I mean, I love books. I would love being their friend. But yeah, they just had a really cute dynamic. I really enjoyed the relationship and the romance part of it. I really liked Myth. She just had this, she was just like this very down-to-earth individual who knew her own mind and she knew what she was doing, but she was also kind as well. And she would kind of get derailed by flirtation and stuff, and totally that is relatable to me. Like if, you know, like if anyone would flirt with me, I'd just probably do the same thing. I'd just like freeze and be like, what are you doing? Like what the heck is going on here? But yeah, and I liked Arvel as well. He was just really sweet, and he would make a really good king in the future. This is I say the current last book of the series. I do know the author is planning a 4th book. I do not know when it will release, but I do know she will eventually write a 4th book. But these are all standalones, and the series is complete as of now. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed seeing more of the workings of this kingdom, and yeah, really enjoy it. Highly recommend. I highly recommend all of kmshia's works. Actually, she's become one of my new favorite authors. I just haven't read them all yet because she has a lot of books. So, in the same vein, the next one that I have is the kmshia short story starter pack. You can get this when you sign up for her newsletter, for her author newsletter. I was just in the mood after reading The Prince's Bargain to read more from her, but I didn't want to start another novel because I had some e-arcs to get to and I needed to get to those a little bit faster. So I just picked up this one. I read it, I think I read it in like a day or two. It's just a collection of different short stories. I know there's one, you can find the listing of them in my review because I list each one. And I also did additional reviews because some of them she has separate on Goodreads. So I just copied my review from there and put it onto there as well. So if I remember them correctly, one was from a prequel to King Arthur and Her Knights. One was a prequel to The Elves of Lessa. Another one was, I don't know if it's a prequel, it's just kind of ties into her Hall of Blood and Mercy trilogy, which is one of her urban fantasy ones. So there was a short story for that one. There was Queen Ruby and Princess Snow, which I believe is it's kind of a Snow White retelling. It's written as like it's a standalone, but I did hear one review say it is tied into her timeless fairy tale series of the book Snow White. So I'm thinking it might be part of that. There was also The Princess Who Chased Sheep. That is just a standalone short story, and I think that's it. I think there was 5, and I think I listed 5. So yeah, I really enjoyed all of them. My favorite was Queen Ruby and Princess Snow. I really liked that one. Just like the whole mystery behind it. I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, where is this going? But by the end, it was very funny. I really, really enjoyed it, and yeah, I highly recommend it, but you can get that when you sign up for the author's newsletter. The next one I read was kind of a surprise. It's kind of a classic. I mean, I have a cover here. I mean, it's not the one I read, obviously. I read it as an audiobook, but that is The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffmann. This is obviously one of the original Nutcracker stories. I was just feeling bad one day, so I decided to look it up randomly on YouTube and see if there was an audiobook for it, because I think it was before Christmas, yeah, that I listened to this. And I found the audiobook anyways on YouTube, and then I just listened to it, and I actually enjoyed it. It's a really odd story. It just tells obviously just the story of the Nutcracker. It's the original. It feels very similar, I believe, to like Beauty and the Beast, because it's like the Nutcracker, when he's a human, tries to do something and then for someone else, and then he gets kind of cursed. He gets turned into this Nutcracker, and someone has to love him before he will turn back into a human. And it was very interesting. I thought that was very similar to Beauty and the Beast. Granted, I have only read retellings or seen the Disney movie for Beauty and the Beast, so I've not read the original yet, so that could be slightly different. But I just thought it had a very similar vibe to it. Some parts I did find really odd. The ending is really strange. It's not my favorite ending. It is still a happy ending, but it's really odd. Yeah, I can see why a lot of people retell, like, do a different ending, but it was also very whimsical as well. There were also some parts that some characters would say things, or I would just miss something in the translation, but that is often what I feel when I read classical, like, older stories or fairy tales or whatever. It's kind of a disconnect in the translation. Not that it's translated into English badly or anything, because I believe E.T.A. Hoffmann's German, or was German, I don't think he's alive anymore, but was German, so this is kind of like a German fairy tale, so to speak. But yeah, I really enjoyed it though. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. The audiobook I listened to was really good. It was just randomly one I found on YouTube, so yeah, I don't know the narrator or anything, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was strange. There were some parts that were really creepy, but yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed it, and now I will probably want to retell the Nutcracker, but now I kind of feel like I want to write a story where you mash the Nutcracker and Beauty and the Beast together. That would be kind of a cool story. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll write one of those in the future. For now, no, because I have a million other things to write right now. So, okay. Alright. So, let's see. How do we want to do this? Okay. I'm going to go into All right, my next one, the first one that I actually still have with me, the next book I read is Legacy, Keeper of the Lost Cities, Book 8, by Shannon Messenger. Obviously, I can't say too much about this one. It's Book 8 after all. Though I do want to say, it was really odd. I'm going to have to tell my library about this, but the first 24 pages are missing in my copy. I was not expecting that. When I opened it, I was like, oh no. I'm missing like most of chapter 1. So I actually had to read most of chapter 1 on like the Amazon's Look Inside online, but thankfully it was chapter 1, not anywhere else in the book. I don't know why those pages are missing. I guess someone ripped them out. I don't know why you would do that. But anyways, Legacy just continues on from where we left off in Flashback, and it is a significant improvement to Flashback. I gave that book 3 stars. This one I gave 4.5 stars, and I really just am very intrigued to see where the author is taking Sophie and her friends in this story, because it's just very different things are going on. There's even more reveals. A couple things were wrapped up, but a lot of things are not still. I mean, I know book 9 was just published last year. I do believe book 10 is going to be published this year, and it's supposedly the last one. So I'm very curious to see how she's going to wrap up everything in like 3 books, because she has 8.5, which is the next book that I'm waiting for my library to get to me, and then there's 9 and 10. So she's got like 2.5 books to wrap things up, and I'm very curious to see how she's gonna do that. But yeah, and still really, really enjoying this series. I want to say it's a lot of people do say it's similar to Harry Potter in certain vibes, and I would agree in like the whole thing of like there's a magical world alongside the real world. But honestly, I think I like the characters in Keeper better than Harry Potter. I don't know, it's just because some of the characters did really annoying things in the Harry Potter books, which is why I'm like split on those. But yeah, anyways, I really enjoy this series. I really like seeing where Sophie's going. Thankfully, we didn't have much of Fitz in this book, which is good, because I do not like Fitz. He is just so annoying. Then he did things in here which was just like, dude, really? That's how we're going to do this? So yeah, and I'm very happy that the whole Sophie boyfriend thing is with certain characters pretty much done, which is good, because I did not like that look. Anyways, that's pretty much all I can say without going to spoiler territory. I am eagerly awaiting Unlocked whenever my library decides to send it to me. But there's only like 2 copies in the system, and I think 2 other people had it on hold before me, so who knows when I'll get it. And let's see, and let me switch to the next one, because I didn't have this picture set up. I apologize. Okay, so my second to last 4-star book is Snowfield Palace by Kendra E. Ardnek. I got a copy of this from the author in exchange for an honest opinion. This is a retelling of The Snow Queen combined with Jane Austen's Mansfield Park, which I have not read. Basically in this one we follow Ginny. She is kind of a ward in this kingdom, and she's just very quiet, very invisible. She pretty much just stays in the background and does what she's told and tries not to rock the boat in any way. And a series of events happen. A couple of neighboring royals come to visit at Snowfield Palace where she lives, and then this magic mirror thing is brought into the palace, and then an accident happens with that, and things kind of just go from there. This is the 4th book in the author's Jane Austen Fairy Tales. I believe that is the series name. I don't know, and it doesn't say on the cover, so I'm pretty sure that's it. But yeah, this is the 4th book in that series, and I have never read Mansfield Park. I barely know anything about I've never read any Jane Austen, but I really don't know anything about this plot, except that I do know in Mansfield Park the main character's name is Fanny. Yeah, I do realize that book was written a long time ago, but it's like, really? Fanny? Yeah, just not a good name. But she's Ginny in this book, and yeah, it's just a very light, easy read. I was very suspicious of multiple characters throughout this book. Even one of them, the princess who comes to visit, I did not like her. she was just weird. She was wishy-washy. She would, like, act all mysterious and weird for a while. And then she'd, like, act like she was Ginny's friend. And then she'd go back to being mysterious and weird. And I don't know, I just didn't like her. She disturbed me a great deal. She just kind of disturbed Ginny a bit too, so I feel a little justified in feeling that way. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like her. She had weird things about her. This was just a very light, kind of, it's not really fluffy, but it's just a very light, easy read. The fairy tales combined with Jane Austen's types of novels, I believe, very, very well. Like I said, never read Jane Austen, so I don't really know. But I feel like the weaving that the author does in these stories is very, very well done. I did like Ginny a lot. She was very kind of shy, reclusive, and very much felt invisible. I very much relate to that since I am kind of a shy, introverted person as well, which is why it's kind of weird that I started a YouTube channel. But, you know, it seems to be working, so who knows? Anyways, then we have... the only thing I found an issue with in this story was, besides the visiting princess, who I had a problem with, I'm not very fond of the way it ended. Well, I mean, it ends happily enough, but there's a situation with, there's this magical forest thing, and people who are connected to it throughout the series. I'm not very happy with how that ended. I'm assuming the author's going to resolve this issue in, like, the next 2 books, because there's 2 more books in this series. But I'm not entirely happy on how that ended, because I'm just kind of like, well, what happened? And nobody knows. And that's it. We're just moving on? I don't know. That's just more of a personal, like, I want to know what happens. Like, does it ever get freed again? I mean, what's going on with the forest? And, you know, that just wasn't answered in this book. I'm pretty sure the author's probably going to answer that in one of the next 2 books. But... yeah, so there was that. That was just more of a personal thing. More of another one is, again, the romance and friendship between Ginny and Kaimund is more told to us. It's not really shown. We're told they're very, very close friends, but I didn't see much of it. Kaimund was actually very rarely in the book. He's Ginny's love interest. And I don't know, he was very rarely in the book. And then... when he was, I mean, there was one particular scene where I felt like, oh, I felt that they were close, but that was it. And it was kind of like in the middle, and then by the end, it really wasn't, and then by the beginning, it wasn't. But there was nothing generally wrong with it. It's just I wanted more than what was offered, and yeah, it just didn't, it was fine. It was just fine. I felt very much about the romance the same I did when I read the very first book in this series, Rose Petals and Snowflakes, which is very much, the romance is extremely light in that book. It's extremely light in Snowfield Palace as well. And it's just very, it's there, but it's not really focused on. So I felt very much the same way. So if you like light to no romance in your book, this one would probably be perfect for you. But yeah, I just like a little bit more, and it didn't really have that. The book is still good overall. I gave it 4 stars, and I really do look forward to the last 2 books, because I do kind of want to see what happens, and if I get any answers on what happens to the forest. Yeah. So, and my last 4-star book that I'm going to talk about, I just decided to throw this in here at the last minute because I finished it last night, is The Depths Will Go To. This is a short story and poetry anthology. All the entries, wow, were selected by Alex Silvius. Silvis, I'm not really sure how to say his last name. I apologize if that's incorrect. This is an anthology of, like I said, short stories and poems that have to all deal with the sea. And I really enjoyed this. I didn't really think I would. Honestly, I was not planning on reading this book at all. Even when it first came out and a couple of my friends had entries in it, I was just kind of like, it's an anthology about the sea. I'm not really that into the sea. I honestly, I don't even like the sea. Yeah, there's things that live in there, and after reading 2 of these stories in here, I am never stepping foot in the sea, like, ever. I was never going to anyways, but it really solidified that with these 2 stories that were in here. It was just like, okay, nope, never going to the sea again. But yeah, this is just like an anthology, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I just didn't think I would, so I didn't put it on ahead of time. But then my my one friend who has a piece in this, she was selling had a bunch of a book sale, and then this one was cheaper, and I just decided to support her some more by buying it. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. There were only a few things, like a few stories or poems that I was just kind of like, about. Most of them were really good. Most of them really touched me. There was like one poem in here. I still don't know how it did that. It's like 4 lines. And it like really hit me. And I was just like, why is this affecting me so much? It's only 4 lines. And I don't know. It was just very well done. And yeah, a lot of the stories really hit me. And it's just a nice, it's not really sweet because a lot of these end in tragedy, but it was just a nice anthology, and I think it did cover a lot of things of like the sea and different like mermaid things and stuff. There were a few stories and poems in here where you could tell they were Little Mermaid inspired, but none of them were direct retellings, so yeah. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it, and would recommend it if you want to try like a variety of authors, different works in various short stories and poems. If you like that type of thing and want to try different authors that way, I would recommend this one. Also, if you like the ocean more than me, definitely check this one out. Okay, and now we're gonna get into my 5-star books. So, I'll go ahead and show one of the ones. We're just gonna go through the pictures on the iPad first. And the first one I want to show is the Clean Fiction Winter Edition 2022. This is the latest of the Clean Fiction magazines. I really enjoyed this. Also, the cover is super cute with that little dragon. He's so cute. But yeah, I got the ebook for free around Christmas time when it came out, and I just decided to read it. It is a magazine full of like reviews of like different indie and small press books. They are either Christian or just clean secular books, and I really enjoyed them. Most of the fantasy ones in this volume or this issue I had already heard of or were already on my want to read list, but I did get a few other recommendations from like the sci-fi category and manga and just a couple other things. They just do a great job every year or every time with this magazine, and I just like supporting it and promoting it whenever I can. So yeah, I read that one, 5 stars. Okay, we're just going to talk about this one too, so I have the picture up. This is the most recent book I finished before The Depths Will Go To, and that is the first book in the Becoming Beauty trilogy, but also the Classical Kingdom series. I'll explain more about that in a minute, and that is Before Beauty by Brittany Fichter. I'm sorry, I apologize for the glare on that. It does not like that yellow dress. The light doesn't. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I say there's 2 different series because, okay, the Becoming Beauty trilogy is the first 3 books in the Classical Kingdom series, which is this author's fairy tale retelling series. The first 3 books just follow the same 2 main characters from Before Beauty throughout that. So it's kind of their trilogy, and then the rest of the books are either standalones or there's a duology. Also later on in the series, her Neverland duology, which is part of the Classical Kingdom series, which is all just fairy tale retellings. I hope that wasn't confusing, but yeah, it's 2 series stuck in one. Is the best way I can describe it. And Before Beauty, we follow 2 different characters. We follow Prince Everard, I believe is how you say his name. Everyone calls him Ever, so I'm just going to call him that. He is basically trained to be the next king of his kingdom, but he makes a horrible choice and disastrous mistake on the night of his coronation, and basically the fortress, which is the castle's name and has been blessed with magical powers by the maker, who is God in this story, basically the fortress rejects him and curses him, or at least, and then this curse is allowed to descend on the kingdom. And then we follow Isabel, or Isa, and she was crippled in an accident by the prince years ago, and she basically gets rejected on her engagement by her fiance. She basically gets rejected, and then she ends up at the fortress through a series of certain events, and basically Isa and Ever do not like each other. They pretty much hate each other because of things that happened in the past that connect them, and but they have to work together to break this curse because pretty much they have discovered that Asa might be the only person who can do it. So that's fun. Yeah, and that's basically the story. You could definitely tell this was the author's first book because a couple of things in the very first two to three-ish chapters I was very confused on. Like, certain things would happen and I would just be like, okay, what is this? What is going on? There were just a little bit of disconnect with a couple of things that were supposedly mentioned before but just weren't. There were just a couple of instances like this. The first two chapters, I wouldn't say they were hard to get into because I was interested in Ever and what he was going through because the first two chapters follow him. But then also certain things would show up and then I would just be confused. I don't know. It was just typical things of, like, say, a first novel. You could definitely tell. And obviously it did not affect my love of this book considering I gave it 5 stars. But just bear that in mind when you go into, give it a little bit of a chance because like I said, it is the first book in a series. It was the author's first book, but I would say give it a chance because by the time we get to, like, Isa's point of view, it definitely has gotten better. And yeah, I loved it. I loved the 2 characters. All the other characters, the side characters, I really liked Garen. He's the steward of the fortress. And I just really liked his wisdom, and he was just a perfect mentor role. There was also, I really liked, this is Christian fantasy, so I really liked how she did the fortress, which is basically the maker who is God in this world. He basically put power into the fortress, and then the fortress, like, chooses people and stuff, so it's like an extension of him. And I thought that was just really interesting. I've never heard of a Christian fantasy that does something like that before, so it's like, basically, you know, so they'll call the fortress for help, but it's not against the maker because the maker made the fortress. So it's like they're also talking to the maker as well. And it was just really interesting. I really liked that part. I liked the powers and just Isa and Ever, you know, getting closer and not hating each other anymore and just that whole story and what they had to learn. I just really enjoyed it. I will be continuing on with the second book in the trilogy soon. Yeah, I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. It took me, like, forever to read this book. It's taken me forever to read this trilogy, and I don't know why. But, yeah, I really, really enjoyed the first book, and we'll be continuing on with that trilogy soon. Okay, so the next book, we're just going to talk about this one. And this is Between Us by Michaela Bush. This is the sequel to her book Back to Me, which I reviewed in a recent reads a while ago. And this is like a short little Christmas novella. It is Christian contemporary, pretty much romance. And yeah, we just follow Bridget. She is now engaged, and but she's still dealing with, like, demons from her past and being away from her family and things that happened in the first book. I can't really say too much of the plot line without revealing what goes, or, you know, like, what happens in the first book. So I'll just say this is a very, like, short, kind of like a wedding Christmas book, sort of. And it just shows that how you can heal from trauma and continue on, but you can still have stumbling blocks and, you know, still have issues and things like that, but it doesn't mean you're not healed. It just means you're going that way. And I just really enjoyed this. I really loved being with these characters again, and yeah, just really, really loved this. And yeah, 5 stars. I really have enjoyed this duology. It's the Bridge duology, in case you were curious about the series title name. And yeah, just really, really loved this. And then the next one I read is a reread, and this is kind of like my annual Christmas book, even though technically when I looked at Goodreads, the last time I read this was like 2020, so it's like so much for the annual idea. And that is What Light by aShattered. This is a secular contemporary book. It is very clean though. There's only like a few swear words, and even then, because I do list them in my content in my review, but even then they're only ever said like once each time. So it's very clean. And we follow Sierra. She and her family runs a Christmas tree farm, and then she in Oregon, and she always goes down with her parents to sell their trees in a Christmas tree lot in California every year. But this may be their last year to do it, so she's trying to make the most of it, and she meets a guy named Caleb who's like just buying all these different Christmas trees to give to different people or give to needy people, and there's like a mystery behind his past, and it's just a really sweet romance, but it's also about love, and it's also about forgiveness, and it's just the courage to see people as not just what a rumor says or what, you know, other people may say, but to actually see a person as they are, even if they've had messed up in their past or things didn't go well for them beforehand or whatever. You can still see a good person inside and people who change, and I just really like this book. Yeah, I really love it. I know this is the author of 13 Reasons Why, which I have not read and probably will never read, but yeah, this one is really good. It's really clean. It's just really sweet and heartfelt, but it has enough depth to it, because my main issue with contemporary books is they're just so fluffy. They're just unrealistic, and just half the time they annoy me, or they're just boring. But this one is none of those things. It has enough lightness to it that it's like a Christmas read. It's fun, but it also has enough depth to it to just really mean something beyond just this is a fun read. This is just, yeah, it just has a lot more depth to it, and I really enjoy that about it. And yeah, and from now on, I probably will try to read this every Christmas, as opposed to thinking I read it every Christmas and then realizing, oh wait, I've only read this book twice, and the first time I read it was in May, because that's when I first picked it up from the library. So yeah, but yeah, really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, and the next and the last two I have to talk about. The first one is one of my new favorite books of all time. It is Walking on Water by Reflections on Faith and Art by Madeleine L'Engle. I'm not sure if that's how you say her name or not. This is like a writing craft. It's not really a writing craft book. It's like an encouragement book for creatives. It's mostly for writers, but I believe any creator could get, or even non-creators could get insight out of this, and I just really love this book. I wasn't even planning on reading it this year. I just decided to get it from the library on a whim, and it encouraged me so much. I've been having, if you've been following me on any of my writing videos, you know I've been having issues with writing the third book of my series, The Creatively Chronicles, and this book really, really helped me. It just really helped kind of just kick my butt into gear, of just like to pick it up and to just write in, even if it's just garbage beforehand, to just get into the mode and invite God into helping me out with it. And it's just really encouraging, really amazing. I honestly don't have the words to describe how much I love this book. I mean, literally, I finished reading and then I was just like immediately on Amazon looking around for where to buy this book, because it's like I just needed it. I just need to keep reading it and absorbing what she has to say and stuff. And it's just honestly best book for creatives that I can think of. Like, don't even bother with writing craft books, just read this. I mean, yes, you can read some writing craft books, especially if you don't really know how to structure a story beforehand, but this one just really gave me a lot of hope, really gave me a lot of inspiration, and I highly recommend it for authors, creatives, and even just normal people alike, because it's just very, very inspiring. And the last book I read after I read Walking on Water, I was just in the mood for more creative inspiration. I just really wanted to be encouraged to keep writing and stuff like that. So I picked up Dear Author, Letters from a Bookish Fangirl. This is by Laura A. Grace. I have read this book before. This is just like, it's just like little short letters and with illustrations that she wrote, sorry for the glare, like just little short letters from like a fangirl to an author, and it's just really encouraging. It's a very tiny little book, but it just packs a lot of a punch, and it just gives great inspiration. And even if it's just, you know, talking more about you're already published and they're encouraging you and stuff, it's just really encouraging, really helpful, and I really enjoyed it. I literally cried the first time I read this book. This time I was just smiling a lot, and it didn't really make me cry this time. It did make me tear up a few times, but yeah, and it's just very heartfelt, very inspiring, and yeah, I would highly recommend any and all authors read this, or writers read this, because it's just, it's just very inspiring, and it will help encourage you to keep going in your writing. Okay, and that is it. These are a sample of the books I have read this past 2-ish months. Most of these were read in December. I did finish several and read several of these in January as well. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments, you guys, if you have read any of these books, or if they look any interesting, or just whatever bookish thing you want to talk about. What is a book you guys are reading at the time? And yeah, I would really love to hear from you. Let me put these down before I drop them all. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. I love answering your comments. And if you say follow this or watching this video from Goodreads, go ahead and leave a comment on the post. I will put it on Goodreads as well, because I still love hearing from you guys, even if you're not on YouTube. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!